it got all chewed up. Crank came apart. So let's try something new. No gap. It ended up being 3. I did modify the transfers. It looked like a Thomas English muffin. Probably an air bubble when it kind of goes to the left.
Well, I got a video going. I'd like to see it fall if possible. It makes good content. What? Where's the plunger?
We interrupt your normally scheduled broadcast for this intense new project. Believe it or not, the motor took a crap. But I did run into a tiny issue. I can't help myself. When the piston is at top dead center. So, you know, why leave well enough alone? Let's do something crazy because I don't have enough to do. Idiot. Anyway, what can you do? Can't rewind time. So, I want to get away with making the thinnest possible gasket I can to raise the cylinder the most minimal amount I can to fix said problem. And that is this. So we're gonna get started with cutting this out. When I fixed my black motor a year and a half ago, I had this same crosstalk, or I don't know what you'd call it. Basically, the crankcase is open to atmosphere, and you don't want that. It will make it run absolutely horrible, especially in the higher RPMs, if you can even get there. This is nowhere near the level that was. That was way out there on messed up. That's why I made a 4mm spacer, if you remember, to raise it up enough. Okay, so I showed you the problem of being possible crosstalk. So that's top dead right there, so no gap. Now that is without any moto seal, so it's actually gonna get a little bit taller. It ended up being 3 aluminum can base gaskets. Sure, spacer is what I was going for, not a gasket. Let me show you what it looks like underneath. So that's what we're working with. You can see it's basically nothing. I'm gonna measure the spacer altogether once I take it back apart and start getting ready for the finishing touches. Okay, because I did modify the transfers, I'm gonna give you a rundown on everything and what my thoughts are. Oh, speaking of modifying the transfers, I'm going to be looking into getting some kind of a 90-degree angle because it's just so hard to keep a steady hand and work on a transfer that you can't get much angle on. Anyway, so the exhaust, it opens at 93, closes at 267. It's got a 174 duration. That's great. Transfer, got a 113 open, close at 247, 134 duration. I really wanted a 128 transfer, and I went up to 134 by accident, so I'm a little upset that I missed the mark on that one. I had a feeling too because I was chasing the line. Hey, every motor you learn something. That's the way I look at it. Every motor, I learn a little more. What can you do? Intake, open 72, close 72, 144 degrees of duration. The blowdown is 20. So all in all, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with how the soda cans worked out for me to bring it up. So all in all, I'm happy. But we will determine if I'm actually happy once we get it on a bike and actually try it, because who knows, it might not be working at all. It might be horrible. Just for instance, the transfers, they opened at 119, they now open at 113. That is 6 degrees of difference. I wasn't going very much. I raised it a hair more than I wanted because the first time I used my new marker and the line thickness, I went to the top side instead of on the bottom side. It's a felt tip Sharpie, but like a fine felt tip Sharpie, see? I should have went to the bottom without and leaving the line there, leave like a gap between the line and where I actually make the port, as opposed to going to the line, or in some of the cases, because it's very hard to do, the top of the line. That would have gave me the cushion that I really wanted, but yeah, is what it is. I'm finally finishing up with this motor here. Was just trying to get the squish right. Now it still is gonna go up a hair because when I put the moto seal on, minimal amounts, but the squish, 0.78, 0.79, it depends because, you know, it's a taper and this was messed up, so I had to go in and smooth it out so we don't get detonation from the little nodules on the head. Basically, it looked like a Thomas English muffin in there because of the chewed up bearing flying apart on the old crank. So we got it all smoothed out really good. I didn't want to go too much in there because the more you go in there, the larger you make your compression chamber, and the more I'm going to have to either deck it or, you know, just the less compression we're gonna make. And I'm trying to keep the compression comparable to what it was. So I went down as little as possible. There is still some dents I'll show you, but this is the squish. So 0.78-ish around there. So that's not bad. I'm happy with that. This is the final product. Now you could still see dents all around the squish band, but they're minimal and there's nothing protruding. There's no small area to get absorbently hotter than the rest of the head and cause pre-ignition or, you know, detonation, which is very bad for the motor. Those indents that you can see are not gonna cause any of that, but they're also not very rough. Now, this is the smoothest I could get it without making the combustion chamber much larger. You can see how much I had to deck off. The edge is minimal now. So we definitely went down quite a bit. We were at 1.9 or 1.8 yesterday with a stock head gasket. And the head gasket, there's no, also remember, there's no heat cycles on this yet because I'm still putting it together. Once we get a heat cycle, we have to retighten everything because the heat is going to expand the metals and it's going to squish this because this is going to get more malleable and it's going to squish this a little more and our gap is going to go even smaller. So I think after our first heat cycle, if we were to recheck everything, we're going to be at the 0.69 to 0.75 area all day long. So these are the gaskets. We got an MLA base gasket, multi-layer aluminum base gasket. This is really technically a spacer. We're back on Brian's 80/100/75, 77 point something, whatever. Turn it into an iron sleeve. You know what I'm talking about. You've been here for the earlier part of the video, so you definitely know by now. Anyway, we're putting together on final assembly, which I'm pretty souped about because it's been a while. So I measured, I forgot, I was late last night and I was tired, I didn't think about it, but I measured the spacer that I made, right? This is the kind of spacing that we were talking about that we needed to make this happen. This was the final size of, there we go, you can definitely read that, 0.47. It's thinner than a fingernail. That's how thin the spacer was that we needed. Now, did we really need that? I don't know, but that's why I didn't use a gasket, because the gasket is like 1.2. That's a thick one, so on average they're about 1 millimeter. So we needed, even after it squishes and all that, it's still gonna be like 0.7-ish, you know, at its thinnest. We made the spacer MLA, multi-layer aluminum gasket. I know, came up with that myself. Hashtag awesome. So that's great. Everything on it is great. Covering everything, it seems perfect. I had to put on a wire because he doesn't know what he's doing, and instead of calling me and asking me what to do, he just took it upon himself to crush it, which is when I tried to fix it, it just broke right off. I'm sure some of you have dealt with that before. So I always save my white wires because these breaking off are a common thing. So I cut the white wires off, I save them. This way I have the original connector to put on. I spun this over, I already put the coil in, as you could tell. So I spun this over with the drill last night, and it makes some compression. So it sounded like it was running, so to speak. When I was just running it on high with the drill, I put my finger over the spark plug and it bit down, and it was hard for the drill, and it was just twisting my wrist. I couldn't hold it. It's making some compression. Super happy about that. It's definitely sucking through the, you can hear when you put it on a drill with no spark plug and then you put your finger over the spark plug hole, you can hear where it starts pulling the air from. It's very interesting. If none of you have ever done it before, it's worth it. It works best with the rings on, so make sure you lube up the cylinder if you do decide to do it, but it will work basically the same without the rings. It's just not as tight because there's obviously not as much sealing going on. Either way, we are completely sealed up. The rings are great. Everything in the cylinder seems to be great. So I'm assembling, final assembly, and I'm getting ready to put this on. That's about level to you, and then you could tell that the rest of it is not level. So I'm pretty sure it slipped out of the pin on this side. Let's get working on the clutch next. I can only get so much done. I got work less than an hour. Either way, let's get this done. Actually, I think I'm gonna throw the intake on first, bada bing, so it has time to start setting up, because I'm definitely not gonna get around to putting it on the bike today, but I could possibly, when I come home from work, if I'm not absolutely wiped, I could have the time to finish the motor so that tomorrow when I wake up, and maybe even wake up on purpose a little early, highly unlikely, but plausible, possible. It could happen is what I'm saying. You know, I got an alarm on my phone. Okay. Wake up early. I can't even say it with a straight face. When the motor blew up, the clutch was not slipping. I put more than the average bear's amount of preload on the spring because I know it's gonna need it. 90% of the motors I build, they got a lot of bottom end grunt. And if you put someone like Brian on it, pretty much the stock amount of spring pressure is going to be enough to move the bike along no problem without really slipping. You put someone like me on it, it's like putting an anchor behind you and trying to drag that down the street, all right? 300 pounds on top of the bike, you start to find the weak points. So I put a good bit of preload on the spring. You can get away with a lot with one of these stock springs if you set your clutch up properly. But in turn, you end up with that. That's obviously not good. So when I put this in the first time, I bent it straight. So you know, this is your standard Allen key that takes off, you know, most of the bolts on our motors. This is the pin that holds it all. So you know how big the Allen key is, that's how much smaller that is. So it's tiny. Also, because of the amount of preload that I put on here, you can see there's a good bit of wiggle room. You know, these aren't like super high quality. As you compress it, it ends up expanding this way, short. So, good, great, so wonderful. What I'm going to do is I found, you know, a grade 1 nut, screw, bolt, something or other. It says stock, it's 3.97, so almost 4 millimeters. And this, 4.85. So it's not a full millimeter bigger, but it's close. And just like in us, every inch counts. Giggity. Well, when you're dealing with millimeters, every millimeter counts when it comes to the strength. Put this thing together so we can get it on the bike. There you go. You can see it's not twisted anymore. It is perfectly level. So that worked out perfectly. So you can see, it's hard to see in there, there is about 2.5 threads. Let's put it in the motor. From what I can tell, it sounds good. So the main reason I was doing this on this one is because, remember, I had to raise the cylinder to cover the piston. So the next step is put all that clutch cover crap on, slap her together, and we could put a stock exhaust on. But all right, we'll figure out what we're gonna do, but let's finish buttoning this up, which is not much left. And the next step is letting her rip. Tater chip. Okay, so I came outside to put the motor on it. As you can see, the exhaust is on the ground. It does not fit. You know, it fits on the motor, obviously, but it does not fit on the frame. I had a feeling it might not. Also, this tire is flat, so I just said, meh, too bad. And I put this on it. Honestly, I really actually like this rim on here because it's a Pepsi bike with the red, the blue, and the white, and that red pops. I got to adjust the clutch. So I took it out real quick to see how everything was going, and I literally just popped the clutch as I was going extremely slow. Like, I mean, I was barely moving, not even 5 miles an hour, and the motor started up. I was really not expecting it to do that at all. So this is not going to be first start. Unfortunately, I didn't have my camera, it was charging, but at the same time, in my defense, there was no way I thought it was going to start. I just wanted to check to see if the clutch had good preload and all that, because I left the flower nut with very minimal preload, and it started up. I apologize that it's not first start, but I needed the camera to charge. And in my defense, like I said, I really did not expect this thing to start. I mean, there's no reason for it to start. I was going so slow. I didn't have choke on. I literally just kind of like dropped the clutch, so to speak, and took off. I was very impressed. And, you know, it sounded half decent, I'm going to be honest. It really did. I'm lying. It sounded more than half decent. It sounded killer. But I didn't really get on it because the clutch wasn't really there. And even more than that, both brakes were not working at all. The front one was disconnected because I forgot about it. And the rear one was super duper loose. I feel kind of bad that his exhaust didn't fit, because I know he really wanted it to work, but at the same time, it is what it is, guys. Just because this is such a tight frame, it really needs to be a MZ65, like a down and around or something of that nature. I'm really digging this front rim. Not the fact that it's a rim like that. I mean, it does look cool, but more the fact of the red color, I think, is just really awesome. Let's see how we do. We've got some brakes, that's all that matters. The brakes are working, so that's a bonus. I'm trying to sit up, guys, but the new camera, as it sits, you're kind of looking down, and this bike is very small for me, so I automatically lean over a little. It feels strong. What? Where's the plunger? The carburetor is missing the plunger. Look at this. I just looked down. That's crazy. Can you see it? The plunger's gone. I would imagine that's going to make an air leak of some sort. Oh, Jiminy, we got to get a different carb. Nothing's easy, guys. Nothing is easy. We need to go find a carburetor. Let's go find one real quick. You're going to follow? Where's your walker?
I'm trying to get out.
Yeah, I see that. Where's your walker?
Nah, he get up, man.
Yeah.
Want to get his exercise on sometime.
Well, I got a video going. I'd like to see it fall if possible. It makes good content. Okay, I got a carb. This one has the plunger. It has everything needed. When I take that carb off, I'm going to see what jet is in it. If it's a stock jet, I think I'm going to put this on. This is a brand new Bofang, just because, you know, one less headache. If not, and it's not a stock jet, I will put this on or probably take that one apart and put this on. I know this carb is 100% good outside of it missing the plunger for some strange reason now. Okay, so that's completely stock. So let's just go ahead and put the Bofang on. Like, this is a brand new carb. I haven't used it once yet. Now, if this doesn't work well or is just horrible for some reason, because I don't have much time running a Bofang. I only ran one for a little while on Jokester when I first built it. And then after that, I just put on an NT. Almost started up already. It's running so nice. I took it out on the road without even taking it out in all lights. So it's really running nice. Well, there you have it. I'm gonna change one more needle. I'm just curious if I go one more notch leaner, how it would be. But worst case scenario, I go back to what it was. All in all, guys, she's running great. So I'm putting her away, as you can see. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'm glad you came along with me on the build. I'm sure we'll get a little more footage of it before it goes home, and definitely of him picking it up most likely. Either way, make sure you hit the like for me, because I really want to pass the videos around, get a little bit more traction. Also, hit the subscribe button, guys. I know you're watching. You right now are watching it, and you're not subscribed. Why? I don't know. I'm freaking awesome. Look at all the dumb stuff I do. I'm starting to develop a little bit of a thing going on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, yeah, well, we got a couple bikes we're doing stuff too. So as always, there's always something going on over here. So please hit the subscribe, come back for the next video. Either way, no matter what, most important to me, guys, always please leave me a comment in the comment section. I appreciate that a whole lot. And if you could, go to Johnny's Motorized Bicycles Facebook group. There's a link to it down in the description, right below the video, right above the comments, somewhere in that area right there. Yeah, exactly. So do that, write me a comment, say what's up, and as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.